In a previous challenge, we tried to beat the original Crash Bandicoot without killing any enemies, and I wondered how that challenge would go with all the different movement and level types introduced in Crash Bandicoot Warped. So that's what we're going to do. We start out in Camelot meeting the locals, so in terms of enemies, we avoid pretty much everything by walking along the walls. Then we dive into our first underwater level and our first issue, the underwater vehicle, which I found out was called the Deep Apple in Japan. So the issue with the Deep Apple was the slow up and down movement and sluggish turning. The sharks track and move to the same height we are, and we weren't quick enough to avoid them or able to ascend quick enough to avoid an upcoming mine. So the solution? Throw away the rotten apple, swim in underneath it and pass the obstacles just with Crash, repeating later as well. We've worked out well enough, although it was a tight squeeze with the last shark. Next was Coco's Tiger level, and although it is one of my favourite level types in the game, nothing too interesting for this challenge as there's no killable mobs to avoid, same for making waves. Boneyard was next, and looks like the Triceratops from Jurassic Park got better because he's after us. Since we had no chance of killing him though, and the divers, we could just jump around. A pretty risk-free run through this level. Onto our first boss, Tiny, who brought a few lions with him. Started out trying to just jump in one place to avoid them, but was too easy to either kill the lion or if they spawned too close together to get chomped. So ended up doing this weird crouch jump from left to right throughout, which ended up working out. G-Wiz, apart from being almost done in by a goat at the end, had the same wall walking strat from last time. Hang 'em High was a little interesting. Due to the mobs tracking in this, we couldn't just walk around. Instead we had to slide and jump around from the platform and then back onto it. Also some rail walking, and one pot enemy that just did not want to survive, but eventually got the timing right and down. One last roadblock and managed to get through. A couple more levels to clear for this area, but no enemies here. And last one before Dingo Dial, Tomb Time, which apart from forgetting I didn't have double jump yet, didn't have any problems. Skip through Dingodile, which, by the way, if you slide, spin and jump, you get some additional height, so you can just go straight over the crystals, speeding this boss fight up. Crash's lookalikes, no, not you. But the biggest issue is in Dynamite. Still not entirely sure what they are, bandyfish, but they really just got in the way. After a few errors, added a bit of slide double jumping in the mix, did manage to get past them all. High Time with the same problems as last time, but with a new one. Mobs now directly in our way on the hanging sections.
Nice.
So is that it? No way past? Well, surprisingly not. Somehow walking, quotations, along the very edge avoids them. Even the scorpions we just phased past. Strange, but not complaining. A quick bite level next, and then we were back underwater, where we ran into this impossible shark. Now if this opening was slightly larger, I think could have fit just over it. But unfortunately, had to bring back the classic Aku counter. One kill for Aku, and a second one. But a small note on those. Whilst editing this, I came across this moment that I hadn't noticed whilst recording. I've seen this, I did try go back and see if I could repeat those with those two sharks, but I just couldn't seem to get it. So 2 kills on the counter, but someone might have more luck replicating this than I did. Thought there was going to be a third one, but I refused. I decided there would be no more killing for the remainder of this run. We dodged, weaved, and lured mobs down so we could speed over and clear to the end. Now to meet Entropy, who we swiftly platformed over and finished. But I did want to check something first with this guy. Turns out if you're quick enough in this fight, you can jump back across the platforms before the next phase starts. So another boss we could speed up. Tell no tales, no mobs, so no issues here, but that wasn't the same story with Bye Bye Blimps. Now this was an interesting one. The flying levels, we had to focus on destroying the blimps without striking or dying to the enemies flying about, and we actually found a way to do both at the same time. The player mobs in this level are quite honourable. They won't shoot us in the back. They will only appear in front, turn around and then shoot. So all we had to do is focus on shooting the blimps, and when the mobs appeared in front, they spin around quick enough, and then they don't bother us. Couple more Egyptian themed levels in Sphinx Nator and Tomb Raider, amazing reference in here, with just a couple of issues for both, being the pots in the former, which I counted as an enemy, so had to manage to get over them, and then the latter, the shield mobs, which I was making sure to either jump around or jump straight over, but ended up being overly cautious with these, as even if we ended up landing on them, they just lift the shield up, so actually no risk of killing these guys. That just left Future Tense, which did need a new strat. The power up we got from Entropy, the Death Tornado Spin, which when using in the air gives us some extra hang time, which throughout this level helped in clearing over certain mobs, which would have been pretty tricky to get around otherwise. But with the spin, we just calmly flew over them, or as calmly as turning yourself into a flying Beyblade is. Meaning another cleared area with no mobs killed, apart from Engine the boss, but he appears in the sequel. 5 more to go. Technically 4, as it was one last ride in Orange Asphalt. Mad Bombers was a bit tedious with the planes moving a tad quicker than the blimps from earlier, so we had to turn around a lot to avoid shooting the mini plane mobs, which failed a couple of times when holding the trigger whilst turning, so had to be a bit careful with that, but otherwise cleared through after a while. Gonsmore, on the other hand, could have had issues with these large mobs, but we already had a trick for that. Jump and a death tornado spin to sail past. Also had to use a few more times to soar over some awkwardly placed enemies, but overall was okay. 2 more to go. Flaming Passion, we had to make use of everything to get through. Jumping around platforms to avoid mobs, jumping on the banisters like we did in the previous theme level, and of course, some death tornado shenanigans. Took a few attempts to get right and learn where was safe to stand, but got through. And finally to our last level, Bug Light, which, apart from a sliding invisible alligator, ended up not having too many enemies to worry about, just easily jumping and moving out of the way. So with that, and a quick Cortex fight to finish, we were done, only having to kill 2 enemies in the entire game. Hope you enjoyed. We did this challenge on Crash 1 as well, so be sure to check that out, and we'll see you in the next video.